the ultimate. Can't fuck with it. The ultimate.
This is Constant Elevation, the show for rising military and community leaders that isn't waiting for the future, we are defining the future. I'm your host, Gabriel Brockavilla, and you already know, can't stop, won't stop.
The ultimate.
3, 2, 1. What is up, everybody? You are listening, you are watching to the Constant Elevation podcast. I am your host, Gabriel Brockavilla. I'm actually recording this on Thursday, November 11th, so I want to say happy Veterans Day out there to everybody. I know I usually drop my episodes on Sunday, so happy belated Veterans Day. Should be hopefully a great weekend for everybody. I actually have to go to work tomorrow. Tomorrow's not a family day or a training holiday kind of thing that you usually have a bridge between Thursday, going to work on Friday, and then have the weekend. And so it's not a big deal. I'm actually going to go in. Normal battle rhythm is going to be kind of light because I think a lot of people are going to be taking off, including members of my team. As well as, and then I'm going to have a professional development conversation I'm going to have with a former teammate I have that I'm working with. Going to have lunch with her. Shout out to Stephanie Travis, aka Pixie. And so glad to link back up with her to see what I can help her. I think she's doing correspondence ACSC, and then we're going to have some lunch and just kind of chat and catch up. So it's always good to see some former teammates whenever I can. But yeah, fun fact, actually, so, you know, with my recent selection for promotion to Colonel, I had to go to clothing sales to go get some, just wanted to make sure I started to accumulate. Me and the homie Josh Hawkins, we were talking about just slowly accumulating some of the uniform items we're going to need. That way, once our pin on date comes on, we have fresh new sets of, OCPs, blues, all that jazz to make sure that we're, ready and fresh out the cut on day one. So I went to the clothing sales and I brought the stuff to the counter, and the lady said, "Congratulations," I think. I was like, "Yes, appreciate that." And so I just had all kinds of, Colonel stuff on. So one of the things I had to buy are these. You can see these if you're watching the video. These are the mesh dress boards for my uniform, right? And so this is the 06 version. And so fun fact, this is the first time I had to purchase the boards for my mesh dress at all in my entire Air Force. When I first came into the Air Force, my dad actually bought me my mess dress because I was a poor college kid, and he actually bought me my second lieutenant boards as well. And so that's actually the exact same mess dress I'm still wearing now. I have to make sure I don't have any COVID weight that I can fit in it because I haven't worn it in a hot minute, but I'm pretty sure it fits me. But yeah, so, and then since then, I've actually had veterans actually help me out that where, hey, so as soon as I get selected for next rank, I look to go find somebody, or if they were promoted to the next rank, I actually got bequeathed, or whatever you want to call it, my board set. And so I've never had to purchase a set until now. I did reach out to some former mentors, and there were colonels. They're like, hey guys, do you guys have any mess dress boards? And they're like, actually, I don't want to be a dick, but I'm not going to give those up because just in case I have to wear my uniform again, I actually need to have a full set. And so I can't give those away. I was like, oh yeah, that makes sense. And so went to clothing sales, got my new stuff, and then slowly but surely I'll be getting some, just building out my uniform set, and it is what it is. Just kind of random story. But again, happy Veterans Day to everybody who have served and continue to serve. And yes, very nice to be at this point in time in America's history to where the military is actually favored. So to serve in the armed forces is actually seen a good thing in society. So just want to say happy Veterans Day. So, a lot of times what happens is when my content for Constant Elevation, I borrow it just from my real experiences. I just use this as a platform to just kind of share my stories, and that's what today is going to be. It's going to be sharing stories of some recent stuff going on, and based on the title, just because you can doesn't mean you should. I wanted to tell you a story exactly how that kind of panned out. So, actually happened yesterday. Well, it started a couple weeks ago. A couple weeks ago, got informed that we've been working on a project at work, me and a teammate of mine. She works in the division, and so we've been working on this project since the beginning of summer-ish, and it's been slowly but surely, we're getting to the point where the project's almost going to be finished, and we're at the good enough stage that we need to, senior leadership started understanding, hey, so we want to get an update on this project. All right, cool. We got invited to what's called the Skull Session. And so it's almost like a pared down staff meeting. It doesn't have everybody at the table. It just has the primary audience was our 3-star general. And then we usually have the 2-star chief of staff, and then the director, whoever's going to be there. And then that's it. So like a very, very small conference room built, and the skull sessions are built to have discussions with leadership because they don't want to have to, necessarily be distracted by the normal kind of admin things that happen in staff meetings. So this is a deliberate where the agenda kind of rotates depending on the timing and tempo of what's coming up, and where they want to kind of pick and choose what type of topics and subjects they want to brief to senior leadership or out to their peers, to the rest of the service cyber components, as well as the agencies of a 2 or 3 star level. And so it's just kind of it's the on-ramping in order to try and get to there. And also just leadership wants to, if they have the opportunity to give you some vectoring guidance of where they want to go, or if it's a decision brief, they tend to do it more in these smaller, I'm going to call it intimate sessions versus the larger staff meetings where it's still virtual, but like where you have everybody sitting there. So we were told that we needed to give a briefing and prepare for the briefing. We've been running this project for a long time, so not worried about that. We started sitting down with our director every couple weeks and just kind of getting he's attended these skull sessions before. We haven't. And so it's just a thing of, hey, so just this is how these things kind of work, and make sure you get your timing right. So we had to get it down to 3 slides. It was what we wanted the project to do, what happened, and then where we're going. Fairly straightforward kind of format. But obviously the devil's in the details. We had to make sure we had the right messaging, the right metrics and graphics in order to not distract the audience, and making sure the general doesn't go down a rabbit hole. We just got to keep him on track with us. And so it's just the art and science of speaking to senior leaders. So we prepare the briefing, and then it's like, all right, it's going down on Wednesday. So it was yesterday at 7:30 in the morning, first thing out the gate. I'm like, all right, cool. So I was like, hey, we're going to get there at 7 o'clock. Let's go over some of these things to make sure we have it all set. So we get in there, and what it came down to is she's actually going to be the briefing, and I'm going to be just as the division chief. I'm going to be in the room along with our director. So she's been the lead since the beginning of the inception of the project, and so she's ready to do it. She's kind of going through her notes. She has lots of notes, lots of handwritten notes, hand-printed slides, all that kind of stuff. Because we were given some guidance that, when you're speaking to the senior leadership, they expect they don't need to know all the details, but when you're initially briefing them, but if they have a question, the presenter, meaning us, we need to have the details available. So we had a lot of backup slides and a lot of backup talking points just in case it goes down. So we're in my office, we're kind of getting everything organized, and then she's like, hey, sir, so I'm going to ask you something. I was like, okay, what's up? She's like, so I need you to let me brief it. I said, okay. She's like, let me just keep on going, and then only if I look at you do I need you to actually come over, and maybe if there's something that I'm not comfortable answering, or something that it's maybe outside of my lane, or I'm not sure, then I'll look at you. But like, unless I deliberately look at you, just let me do the briefing. I said, okay. And so I know that we've been working on this for several weeks and months, so I'm not worried about like that she doesn't understand the details. I think what she was asking me was some freedom of maneuver to make sure that she would be uninterrupted when she's delivering the briefing. I'm like, okay, you asked for that stuff. And so I walked in there with like nothing. She had a whole stack of things. I had one small piece of paper. I'm like, because I was supposed to give a second briefing, but sort of related to her project, but it was going to be a separate deliberate topic altogether. And so I'm sitting there, and she's giving the briefing, talking to the general. And actually I said, before we started, I was like, hey, so you have 5 minutes. Just try and get it done in 5 minutes. I know that's kind of aggressive, but you need to kind of really sharpen your words in order to make sure you can deliver and hit that thing in 5 minutes, and then allow time for conversation with the general after that. She's like, okay. And so that was the last guidance I gave her. We go into the briefing room. She starts talking with the general, and we walk in there, and it's funny, in a cyber environment, we had technical difficulties to where the slide deck wasn't going to be projected. And so it was like, yeah, so we're going to not have slides. And so for her, I think the slides would have helped to kind of give her a form of structure to have the conversation, because as soon as she started, she kind of like, she had her notes of where she wanted to go. But to be honest, and I told her this after the fact, I'm like, it was a stutter start. It was kind of weird how she started to deliver her briefing, but eventually the general kind of led her back to, so here's what I'm looking for, what happened, what are some of the things that we found, all those kind of things. And she was able to have the conversation. A couple times where one time he asked her a question, she gave an answer in about like 34 seconds. He goes, yeah, you didn't answer my question. Here's what I want to know. And then she kind of kept on going. Our colonel had a little bit of information in front of him as well, and so he tried to fill it in. The funny, not funny, but funny part is the answer to the general's question was in the slide deck. And I knew that. It's on slide 2. And I was even kind of low key. I was like, it's on slide 2. Go to slide 2. And like, I needed her to flip over to the notes, but she had so many notes in front of her, she couldn't find it. Eventually they found the numbers, and then they started talking about it. And I was like, okay, there was like 2 minutes of tap dancing that probably could have been avoided, but it is what it is. She didn't look to me. She was asking for help. And I said, okay, because I didn't have the hard copy printout in front of me. But I knew where the information was. And also the general had he had a hard copy of the slides in front of him. She could have just pointed to him, but it is what it is. She asked me not to intervene. And so the briefing keeps on going, and it's good. It's a good conversation. He starts outlining, start to see kind of like the tail end of the briefing, where we're going to go. And then I can hear them. I can sense like the tone and the energy is starting to not get stagnant, but like they're waiting for someone to close. And I was like, all right, here's where I'm going to jump in. And she didn't look at me or anything. I just said, hey, sir, so based on the great work that we have done here, and I very appreciate the leadership that our teammate has given. Here's what we're trying to do. We're trying to influence policies and processes to make sure these things have an enduring effect across the Doden. We bake in our requirements into processes to where we're not doing the stuff piecemeal, but inevitably we have changed the dynamic of how this operation and how these things need to work in order to make sure that our equities are already there without having to try and insert it every single time. He's like, yes, that's exactly what we need to do. And so everybody kind of rallied around that thought of like, we already understand what the next step is. Part of that next step is influencing things outside his organization, which is interesting and sometimes that's just what's happened. Like you recognize something that's outside of your lane but you want to influence it because it has a positive effect on your organization. So that was our job to try, and that's how I saw as we kept on going through this project. I'm not saying we were doing other people's jobs, but we were definitely helping other organizations to try and move the ball forward, because it's actually in their lane to actually affect change. And so we're going to help them along. So inevitably the briefing goes well, and he says, all right, be prepared that I want you to start prepare this briefing for the next Doden deputies meeting, Doden principals board. So the next like 2-star, 3-star events. And it's like, oh, okay, cool. And so we're ready. We're probably going to use the same slide deck and actually have it there. And then it was a thing of, so we won the confidence of leadership. He gave us a little bit of vectoring and guidance, and then we're going to continue to do what we already planned to do in the project anyway. So, but it was really, I called it an overall win. And so at that point in the skull session, they're like, all right, Gabe, I think you're next, but I think how much time do we have left? And they're like 15 minutes, hard stop. It's like, okay. So my director was like, hey, so I think we can probably pause on the J34 reorg topic and then let the other topic go first. And then I was like, all right, cool. So then Steph, my teammate and I were going to leave. And my director kind of looks at me. He's like, no, go ahead and stay. I was like, oh, okay. So I sit back down, and then the 3-star's like, oh, hey, Gabe, you and your teammate, you guys can leave if you want. I was like, I don't know who to go. And I look at my director. He's like, you can go. I'm like, sweet. Okay. So we leave because I don't need to, the other subject had nothing to do with us. And so we needed to go. So we leave the room and just gotta decompress. And it was really cool. I was like, let's put our stuff down. Let's go downstairs to the cafeteria and let's just have a chat. Got some breakfast, kind of talked about the execution. I gave her some feedback. I'm like, hey, so you noticed that like some of the stuff you need to have prepared. Like you're prepared, but you're not organized. Organize your preparation. You got to get that stuff down. And we're going to have when the general already said we're going to do this again at the next larger audiences, we're not going to be doing this freestyle. You will have a script, and I'll help you write the script to make sure that we are very succinct and deliberate in the messaging we're trying to do, because that's what the general expects us to deliver. And so we have time to do that. But I also told her, I was like, hey, so if you notice, I didn't do. I tried to honor your what you asked, and I didn't try to interrupt you. She goes, yes, I thank you for letting me just kind of figure it out, because I knew that's what I needed to happen, and it was going to be best for me to just know that you weren't going to interrupt me. And I told her a story. I was like, so I also honored her request because I was in her boat at one point in time. So I told her a story back when I was on PACAF staff. I was a major as a branch chief working for a full bird 06 as a division chief. We had to go brief our 1-star, who happened to be the A36 at the time. And so I was intimately familiar with this project. I knew where we were going to go. And my colonel was like, all right, Gabe, so you ready? I was like, yes. However, sir, before we go in there, I need you to not interrupt me. He's like, what? I was like, just let me brief it. Let me brief it like all the way through. And then whatever comments that you have, just wait until the end, because when you interrupt me, it interrupts the flow. Like I know there's a delivery method that I want to try and get across, and the timing and tempo of the subjects. But if you come in and start talking about something on slide 7 when I'm still at slide 2, it throws it all off. Please just let me do it. He is like, all right, Gabe. Well, I also reserve the right to add color commentary whenever I want. I'm like, no, I know, sir, obviously. What I'm asking, though, is allow me to give the briefing, and then only if you feel like I'm way off course, then jump in, or just please save me, obviously. But for the most part, just let me figure it out. And I asked him that because I was like, I wanted to have the ownership. I wanted to have the opportunity to kind of, not necessarily where I was confident I was confident I was going to nail it, but like, even if I got off course a little bit, or the general asked me a question, let me answer the question. Like, I don't need you to provide top cover, because again, I'm closest to the job. And so just just trust me that I'm not going to embarrass you, or whatever you want to call it. Like, I know what I'm talking about. So I offered her that same respect. And I told her, I was like, just based on that story, that's the reason why you knew it. And it took a couple times for, the questions, like, our director always says, sometimes when you're talking to senior leaders, just answer the fucking question. That's what you have to do. And so don't tap dance. If you don't know the information, just say you don't know information, or be better prepared and have that information in front of you and know where it's at. And so those are the kind of things we talked about. And so that was the kind of going back to the name of this episode. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. I could have, back in the day, my colonel could have just come over the top and started overtaking the conversation and briefing, and all of a sudden I'm just kind of there being a slide monkey. I didn't want to do that. I was upfront and I said, hey, so I know this material. Help me be successful by not helping. I know you can, but don't. You don't have to do those kind of pieces. I had that story in my head, and that's where I just kind of maintained I sat at the conference room table and just kind of listened and waited for exactly when I felt I was going to be necessary. And that was just kind of to wrap it up and talk about the vision and way ahead versus the execution portion of it, because she was on top of it. I'm going to continue to mentor her, and this is just part of being a staff officer and learn the audiences. Use my experiences. I'm going to help you be successful. I also expect you to be prepared. I expect you to know your material, but like, there's times where I'm going to let go of your bicycle seat. We're going to go. I'm just going to let you go. You're going to have to figure it out. And sometimes you might fall, and that's okay. There wasn't anything in there at any point in time did I feel like she was heading towards a disaster. And I also think that the audience wasn't the general or the other senior leaders in the room weren't trying to do like stump the chump or anything like that, trying to find like, I gotcha. See, this is what you weren't thinking about. It was a great environment and energies for understanding and conversation, which I did like. So I think that's the point of having those skull sessions. It's supposed to have conversational kind of dialogues with people that just kind of removes. I mean, you're talking to a 3-star general, so have your shit together, obviously. But like, if you're prepared, you're good to go. And even if you kind of fumble here and there or not, that's okay. It's just an idea of making sure both sides of the audience understand, here's where we're trying to go, and let's move together as a team. So I very much appreciate my leadership, very much appreciate my teammate for knocking it out of the park. I praised her and said, but noted, but we got to keep on going because we have other projects. We need to finish the project, and we have to get ready for those next leadership engagement events. So lesson from this week is just because you can doesn't mean you should. As leaders, you're empowered with a lot of things, but sometimes you're empowered to just sit back and let your teammates actually just kind of get a little, it's a growth opportunity. I want to say make them uncomfortable, but the idea is you got to let them fly a little bit. You got to let them ride without you holding the bicycle seat. And if you've taught them correctly and you've worked with them correctly, they're probably going to be successful. You need to overcome your internal fears of like where it may look bad on you. It's not going to look bad on you. There's another person in front of you. And I think the leaders will look at the teams and the teammates around and know who's going to be held accountable. Obviously, within the chain of command, we're all involved. But like, you don't have to save it like you're defending your honor or your name or anything like that. It's a team sport. Be there for your teammate. Let them, when they're on the free throw line, you can't do anything. They just have to take the shot. So set them up for success. Give them practice. Give them tips. Give them experiences as far as like, here's what I've learned before. Don't do this, or make sure you kind of think about this as you're delivering your messaging. Those kind of things, I think, are the things you should do. But then the other pieces are stuff you maybe want to reserve to allow them to grow on their own. And it just becomes a stronger team. I could have, if I started to jump in when I probably would have damaged our relationship a little bit more, and I would have to build that trust back up again, because she's like, sir, I asked you not to do that, but you did it anyway. So that idea of having trust between two teammates is very, very important, the whole speed of trust kind of thing. And but yeah, it was a good, successful story here. We still got work to do, and so I'm not mad about that, but just want to share some of my experience here going on in our neck of the woods, that just because the leaders can doesn't mean they should. All right, team. So I hope you guys are enjoying your Veterans Day weekend and staying safe out there, heading into Thanksgiving. I'm going to figure out exactly if I'm gonna do double episodes one week, or maybe just skip Thanksgiving week or something like that during the holidays. It all depends on just my timing and availability that I have here. But if I have stuff that I want to release out there, I'll be letting you know. Again, if you haven't already, please like and subscribe to the YouTube channel, as well as this subscribe to the podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. And guys, stay safe out there. Happy Veterans Day. Peace.